You can wear a perfect dress, have a soft voice, and still instantly lose elegance the moment you sit down to eat. Because there are small dining behaviors that refined and socially fluent women never make, and people notice them in seconds. Some of these mistakes might be invisible to you, but painfully obvious to everyone who moves in those high-status environments. And that's why I made this video, in which we will explore the most important international dining mistakes that women make, so that you will never make them. And we will start with the European dining mistakes. I have picked some countries that many women like to travel to, and that have some mistakes that are frowned upon. And we will start with France. So in France, it doesn't really look elegant and socially intelligent to cut everything in small pieces. It is perceived as very nervous, as juvenile, and simply doesn't look elegant. In France, women take one bite by one, so you only cut the piece that you're going to eat. And this is also something that signals that you are not anxious, you are comfortable, and you are taking your time. Another dining mistake in France, or that is considered not very elegant in France, is over-apologizing to the waiter. In France, elegant women stay calm, they hold eye contact with the waiter, and they just say merci, but don't over-explain or over-apologize for anything. This is considered far more elegant than emotional politeness. Now let's move on to Italy. In Italy, even though it is very common in other countries, it is actually not considered elegant, and sometimes even frowned upon, to eat pasta like spaghetti with a fork and a spoon. This is generally associated with tourists and children in Italy. Even though this is not like a formal dining mistake, it simply shows that you are not a very cultural savvy and not very socially fluent. That's why I would recommend you to avoid that. You simply use a fork and you twirl the spaghetti on the side of the plate, which is working perfectly well. You don't need a spoon for that. Another thing that is not considered elegant and sometimes even considered a big dining faux pas in Italy is if you are making a lot of alternations and asking the chef to change a lot of things about your dish. Because in Italy, sometimes this is perceived as a little bit disrespectful towards the kitchen. Of course, this doesn't apply to some kind of allergy that you have. But if someone is really asking to change many details about the dish, in Italy, it doesn't really come across as very elegant. And also, high-status women, they rather adapt to their environment and also to the culture, because they are culturally intelligent. Sometimes it's worth trying something new. Now a mistake from the country I live in, Germany. So in Germany, it is really considered bad manners and not socially intelligent to start eating before everyone else. If you're in a formal or social dining setting and you get your food, and you start eating because maybe your food came earlier or you are very hungry, rather don't do it. It is considered very self-absorbed and not socially intelligent. And then also a classic, putting the elbows on the table like this is considered very low status in Germany. And even small children already learn that. But I think this is not only in Germany, this also applies to other countries. Let me know if it applies to your country too. Now we come to the UK. So in the United Kingdom, it is considered unelegant to switch to the American style with regard to the cutlery. So if you are from the US, you usually eat by cutting with the knife in your right hand and then switching the cutlery and taking the fork into your right hand and putting the knife down. But in Europe and all the other countries and also in the UK, it is different. We don't put the knife away, we just keep the fork in the left hand and eat with it, and the knife in the right hand and cut with it. So if you want to appear very elegant and sophisticated in the UK and culturally competent, don't switch the knife, but keep it in the right hand and eat with the left hand. Another very unelegant thing and mistake that you should avoid in the UK is chewing very loudly or laughing very loudly at a formal dinner. In upper tier social environments in the UK, it is considered very elegant to keep your emotions by yourself, at least to have a little bit more feminine poise while eating. Not being cold or distant, but just a little bit more poised. Let's move on to my home country, the Slavic and Eastern European dining mistakes. Even though I have to say Germany is also my home country, but I was born in Poland. That's why I have both cultures in me. In Poland, my home country, it is considered quite unelegant to repeatedly refuse food that is offered to you. Why is that? It is because in our culture, food is really a big marker of social bonding. It is about caring. And if you refuse it all the time when someone's offering to you, it is considered very unelegant and impolite. You can refuse once, of course, but don't do it repeatedly and eventually accept. Too many refusals can be perceived as social stiffness or distance. In the Czech Republic, it is considered unelegant and a mistake to leave the table too early. So, for example, you finished your food and you immediately leave. This is not very elegant. You shouldn't do it because it shows that you are rather transactional and it's not about social bonding. But in the Eastern cultures, food and dining is always also about social aspects. So a socially intelligent, a socially elegant and powerful woman will of course respect those cultural traits and not leave immediately after finishing, but stay and talk a little until it slowly fades out naturally. In Russia, it is a strong misstep to drink before the toast. You never do that. Actually, also in the other countries you don't, but in Russia, it is very important to look into one's eyes and do the toast before drinking. And that's because declining even a small symbolical toast when everyone drinks is considered as kind of social detachment and not as independence. That's why at least do it symbolically, even if you don't drink. Let's move on to another part of the world that I'm also a little bit familiar with, the Middle East. So let's look at some Middle Eastern dining mistakes. In Turkey, crossing your legs or feet and showing someone the sole of your shoe is considered very rude body language. So it is very unelegant. I mean, actually it shouldn't happen to us ladies anyways, but sometimes it's better to know that. Because elegance is also physical awareness. Another mistake in Turkey would be to rush through the dishes. Because again, here it is about sharing, about taking your time, about indulging in all the different delicious foods. So rushing and trying to eat a lot fast is not considered elegant. Slow pacing is much more important than efficiency. In Lebanon, for example, and I'm sure also in some other countries in the Middle East, it is important to share the mezze. So you share the dishes. It is actually very normal. And if you participate, you also show that you are culturally integrated and intelligent and social and polite. Because if you refuse to share the mezze or the dishes, it can be perceived as very strong social distance. And elegant, refined women participate lightly. They never isolate themselves through food. And now we come to the Gulf states. So in the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf states, it is considered impolite and not elegant to eat with your left hand. So basically, people there only eat with their right hand because the right hand is considered clean. So if you eat food, if you get something from a shared dish, you use your right hand. And this is particularly something that is very, very unusual to us Europeans, because we have this fork in the left and knife in the right culture, and that's why we eat with the left hand, with the fork and the left hand. And for me, this was like the biggest difference. with regard to dining. But if you really want to show respect for the culture and to show high social intelligence, maybe try to customize yourself and use the right hand only. But now that I have covered some countries, of course I cannot cover all of them, we will switch over to the general dining mistakes that instantly reduce your feminine elegance. And these are so powerful because they can damage your image across countries. First, talking while chewing. I think most of you know, but still, it is really important to not talk while you chew. And sometimes when we are very enthusiastic and we want to tell something or to answer because we are in a very interesting conversation over dinner, it might happen, it also happened to me, that we want to say something while we are still chewing. Don't do it. Always finish your bite and then talk. Why? Because talking while chewing doesn't only look quite ugly, but also it shows that you have a low self-regulation and it breaks the illusion of refinement instantly. Another universal dining mistake is reaching aggressively over the table. So, elegant women wait calmly. You don't have to be aggressive, you avoid aggressive movements, just be a little bit more slow, laid back and elegant in your movements. And that's because reaching is a territorial dominance gesture. So that's also another point while it is perceived as unelegant or impolite. It also masculinizes your body language. Another mistake that should be actually very known, but still I see it sometimes, is constantly checking your phone at the table. This, my dear lady, is one of the strongest social status killers in modern times. It signals low social presence, anxiety, and external validation dependency. High status femininity is grounded attention. That's why it's so important to leave your mobile phone alone when you're at the table. Another mistake that you might not have thought of is over-explaining your food choices. For example, you order something and then you over-explain. Yeah, because actually I eat gluten-free and then also I'm not eating this and that because of that and this. Don't do that. You don't have to give any over-explanations. Powerful, refined, elegant women give simple answers. Justification often lowers a social perception. Next mistake, eating too fast. I know this is very individual. Some women eat faster, some eat slower. But generally, across cultures, eating too fast is not perceived as elegant because it always looks as if you are rushed. It is instantly associated with scarcity or nervousness. That's why take your time when you eat. The next mistake has to do with one very popular topic on this channel, posture. Sitting collapsed, so with a collapsed back, slouched posture at the dining table. It doesn't only look very unelegant, but it also makes you appear self-contained and it signals social withdrawal. An elegant woman always eats with an upright and open posture. This always signals not only a high status and poise, but also makes you look much better. And who doesn't want to look better? One thing that I want you to know with regard to all of these things, this is not only about manners. This is also how your nervous system shows through your body in public. That's why these things are so important. And also remember that even though some of these tips might sound unimportant or even ridiculous, dining is not only about eating food. From a psychological point of view, dining is a social ritual. And adapting to some cultural norms as a feminine lady signals elegance and social intelligence. And that's very positive. And maybe you've noticed that this is not a typical etiquette video because this was not my intention. I don't want to teach you rules. I just want to let you know what is considered socially and culturally intelligent in high status environments, no matter where. so that you really project confidence and poise as a woman, as a feminine lady. So simply try to remember a few of those, and even if you just remember the general ones, you will already be very well equipped. And now I would like to know from you, if it happened to you already, did you ever commit a dining faux pas? Did any dining mistake happen to you? Let me know down below in the comments, and also let me know if there are some things in your specific culture or country that are considered very, very impolite or unelegant at the dining table. So I'm very curious to read from you. By the way, I'm opening a small private member space very soon for those of you who want to go deeper with me. I will share the details very soon, so always check the community posts. And if you are not yet subscribed, please click the notification bell and the subscribe button so that you always stay updated. And I will see you in my next video. Bye bye!